This is the first group meeting for the on-farm community food scrap and agricultural organic waste management project that you all know about. And just as a reminder, our overarching goal with this project is to develop sustainable, community-oriented composting sites with farmer partners to manage food scraps, farm residues, manures, and other organics. And so it's community-oriented in that all of our partners will be taking scraps to some extent in different models that we'll be talking about today, to, from their communities to compost then in an integrated on-farm composting system. And we're going to now transition over to Kat, who is going to walk us through some of the system options and the model and the science.
Thanks, Natasha. Thanks for a great intro and great to meet everybody, some of you for the first time. So yes, this is why we're here. We're going to close the loop of community composting, and this little diagram just is cute. It shows us some of the ways that we can do that. Many of you are small farms and within your community, and so this is going to be an exciting project. And as Natasha mentioned before, that so many of you have a community focus is really going to sort of make this picture come to life. We have a variety of farm models within our 7 farms and our soon to be 8th. And these are some of the ways that you all are partnering or are presenting to the world, profit or nonprofit, CSA. I think everybody has a CSA involved or a farm stand involved. And if not, then farmers markets. Some of you are way down dirt roads, and so a CSA or a farm stand might not work, but farm markets work. Some of you are considering ideas of partnering with a hauler, especially as we move into the future. And some of you already have partnerships with relationships and breweries. And that's not an exhaustive list of potential farm models, just to say. In this project, what we hope that you'll see is that you'll see some reduced inputs of off-farm generated fertility and more from on-farm generated fertility. The project has its own inputs, of course. It's going to require a system, which we've been working with each of you on, tools and equipment, which will be working with you on what you have already and helping you to plan for what you might need for the future. Working on feedstocks and helping you identify those on site, ideally. You will have to put in time and labor, and of course you all know that, farmers know that better than anybody. And we hope that the education and communication that we all share together will also actually become an output as well. So we'll put in a lot of education and communication, and we'll have these outputs of finished compost, increased fertility, environmental stewardship, reduced off-farm inputs, as I mentioned, and building community resilience in the long run, which I think is what we're all about, whether it's our own farm resilience, our individual communities, or our greater community of Vermont. So the science of composting is super exciting. We're not going to go into depth about that here. Many of you already know it, and we'll have lots of opportunity to literally dig in to the science on your farms. No matter what size system you use or what type of system you use, the science is the same no matter what. Compost generates heat, and that happens when the perfect buffet is created for all of the microbes that we're inviting into our system. And that buffet includes our feedstocks and our food scraps, water, and air. And as a result, we get heat and we get CO2 emissions, and we also get really nice compost containing the organic matter that you need to help build the soil infrastructure on your farms. And these are some of the stars of the show that we're going to be inviting into our compost piles and bins. These are the guys that are going to do all the work for us. I mean, we have to do some labor too, but they do most of it. And our job is to create the perfect conditions for the massive diversity of these organisms to show up and do the work for us. And this is where I get pretty excited. It really is a lot of fun to attract these organisms and then get out the microscope and identify those. Not sure that that'll be an actual part of our training, but if I can inspire anybody to do that, I'm all over it. Next
And
slide.
Kat, let me just jump in and say, I just procured my first field microscope. So
Ooh.
I will, if anyone is interested,
Nice.
I will be able to be bringing it around to our site visits, and we can take peeks at the microbial life we're stewarding.
Awesome. Yeah. And just
Super
a
excited.
little more on that, you know, just with a microscope, we can tell a lot about the fungal and bacterial ratios in our compost piles, and that can inform us a lot about our final product.
Mhm.
Just a little more on the science. All of the feedstocks that we use, whether they're the food scraps or they're hay or they're wood or leaves or anything, everything has a carbon to nitrogen ratio. We don't need to get hung up on the math of any of this, but know that Natasha and Athena and I come to the table with an understanding of the carbon and nitrogen ratios of various products. And I just want to point out the one that's in red there, wood chips and sawdust, that's a really big variable in CN ratio, the carbon to nitrogen ratio. And that's because different types of wood have different carbon to nitrogen ratios and decay at different rates. So we'll help you to identify all of that. And we just wanted this slide to be in here to let you know that there is such a thing as a CN ratio, and there is a vast list of materials, much longer than what you see here on the slide, of potential feedstocks. And that ratio of 3 to 1 is really critical. It is the most common error in composting is to just not have enough carbon materials. The way I think of that is the food scraps and all of the things that we're trying to decompose and turn into soil are the proteins, and the microbes, in order to eat all of those proteins, need a lot of sugar. And that sugar comes from those dry carbon feedstocks. So if we don't give them the energy that they need to digest the proteins, we're going to get a big stinky mess. So those 3 buckets for every 1 of carbon, and it doesn't matter if it's a yogurt container or a bucket loader, it's still 3 to 1. And we're going to help you to build that into your recipe. And of course, the quality of the materials coming in makes a difference. So we'll help you to determine good quality materials, both in terms of feedstocks and in terms of the incoming food scraps, especially if you're collecting from the community. We'll help you, and we've already talked with each of you a little bit about potential contamination that comes in, fruit stickers, plastics, etc., and help you to set up a good communication system with your participants, whether they be CSA members or farm stand or farmers market, restaurants, etc., to reduce the amount of contamination coming in. And the different types of buckets for how to collect those materials will depend greatly on your model, and we'll work with each of you on that. Here you're just seeing a couple of different kinds of systems that people are using. There are all kinds available. They all involve some buckets, and so we'll help you choose the ones that work best for your situation.